Introduction to Specialism. So if you've watched the film Dunkirk, or The Dark Knight, you might have noticed the never-ending, intense soundtracks that are played throughout both films. This solution is called the Shepard zone. So how does it work? Well, within the soundtrack, there is a high-pitched tone, a middle-pitched tone, and a low-pitched tone, which rises in pitch until they loop back to the beginning. By the end of the track, the highest-pitched tone has become silent, the middle-pitched tone stays loud, and the low-pitched tone becomes louder, and this creates the effect of a never-ending ascending sound. This is an example from the movie Dunkirk, where Christopher Nolan decided to use the Shepard tone for one of his fighting scenes within the film. Brief history of specialism. So you may be wondering who founded this really cool sound illusion. Well, this illusion was first founded in 1964 by Roger Shepard, who was a professor of psychology in the Stanford University of California. Roger Shepard went on to discover multiple illusions, from the Shepard tone to discovering the Shepard table illusion. Roger Shepard introduced this idea in his 1964 paper, Circularity in Judgments of Relative Pitch. The original concept was visualized in a musical context, with pitches jumping in discrete steps. He stated to create an apparent always rising sound, we would need to create a looping pattern consisting of sets of ascending notes that are faded in and out in a specific pattern. How has it improved? The actual illusion hasn't really changed or improved throughout the years, but the experience has. Now in 2020, we are fortunate enough to have different ways of experiencing films, and a good example of this is Dolby Atmos. Atmos expands 5.1 and 7.1 setups to include numerous speakers placed around the room and create an all-enveloping 3D sound experience. So when you're watching Dunkirk with Dolby Atmos, what you are going to gain is a much better and more realistic experience, as it will make you feel like you are in the actual film. Key people in the industry. There is a lot of important people in the industry of film and sound, but the ones I'll be talking about today is Hans Zimmer and Christopher Nolan. Nolan is a very famous film director who has directed films like Dunkirk, Interstellar, The Dark Knight, and many more. Nolan is known for using this illusion in some of his films, but always with the help of Hans Zimmer. Zimmer is a German film score composer and music producer who has composed music for over 100 films, including Hollywood blockbusters such as Pirates of the Caribbean series, Gladiator, The Lion King, Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, and Sherlock Holmes.
You know, it's not an action film, it's not Batman, it just isn't any of those things.
Nolan and Zimmer have worked together in multiple films such as Dunkirk, Interstellar, Inception, and The Dark Knight, and all these films have something in common, and that's that the films contain the Shepard tone somewhere in the film. Within the Shepard tone, there is a ticking noise, and this ticking noise is used to tell the viewer that the person is running out of time. Let's use Dunkirk as an example. The ticking noise in this film is like an omnipresent reminder that the time is running out for the 340,000 British and Allied soldiers marooned on the French beach and surrounded by Germans. This is what creates the very intense atmosphere when watching the film. Another example would be Interstellar, when the big wave is coming towards the group, telling the viewer that the time is of the essence and things could get bad if action is not taken.
Fran Doyle, back to the Ranger now.
We're not leaving without her data.
Get back here now.
Key techniques with the subject. There's a few techniques that have to go along with the illusion to make it effective for the audience. Firstly, the sound. Most Shepard tones that have been used in films have a deep and distorted sound, which creates the suspense in the film. The type of shot is also very important. The illusion works best in a moving shot. And the reason for this is for the same reason that we have deep sound. It creates suspense to the film, resulting in having a very engaging audience, which results to a very successful film.
Go, go, go.
Am I gonna make it?
My own attempt. So this is how my own Shepard tone has turned out. Interview. Hey Phil, thanks for coming on this interview.
Hello.
I've got a couple of questions about audio and the Shepard tone. So firstly, what inspired you to teach or learn audio?
It was a gap in the market. I grew up listening to Radio 4, and that's kind of weird to have a kid listening to Radio 4.
Yeah.
I understand that. But it was not anything other than comedy.
Right.
It was just comedy. That's all I was interested in.
And you really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and so I used to listen to, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I used to listen to my parents' albums of Hancock's Half Hour and The Goon Show.
Really cool.
And so I started to learn a lot more about BBC light entertainment and comedy, and it just grew from there, So from then on, it was just, this is all I'm interested in. I'm really interested in radio, sound production, and script writing comedy and drama, and I started to branch out and listen to other comedians on independent local radio, not BBC. So Chris Seavey, who created a character called Frank Sidebottom, that was made into a film a few years back. And so it was always my thing, but it really started out just by listening to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy on BBC Radio, and now I'm doing a PhD in radio drama, the history of commercial radio drama, and a lot of people don't really appreciate it, but when they go to the cinema to watch a film, they're listening to it as well. They're not just seeing it. Because a lot of the movie is made out of bits of wood and plastic and sets and digital sets that don't physically exist. So someone with a background in sound production has to come in and put the sounds in to make you believe it's real.
Absolutely.
So,
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I've got a last question. Do you think the Shepard tone is effective in movies? Do you think it really captures the audience's attention?
In a very subtle way, yeah. Or maybe not a subtle way. Maybe it's a really obvious way. It's used quite often now by Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
With Hans Zimmer. So as you know, in Dunkirk, I think on the album the track is called Supermarine.
I believe
something
so.
like that.
I literally just listened to it.
Yeah. So you've got that that idea that I think it's a double bass going bum 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 bum, and it just keeps going up and up and up and doesn't stop.
Right.
Christopher Nolan also used the Shepard tone in the Batman movies.
The Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight and the other one, The Dark Knight Rises or Returns, whatever it's called. It's the Bat Pod, basically. The Bat Pod has got, when it unclicks itself from the car, they use the Shepard tone to make the engine of the Bat Pod sound like it's constantly rising up through the gears. So there's no gear change. It just constantly so he sort of drives, he sort of points that he sort of flies through the shopping mall and people are jumping out the way, and the engine's just increasing, but really it's not really increasing, it's just being replaced by a lower tone that comes in and takes over the higher tones, but it feels to the audience like it's constantly rising forever.
Yeah.
So again, that adds to the gravitas of the character and the technology, the car, the motorbike, and it just makes it more impressive and relentless. The character is just relentless and just keeps going and going and going, and the sound effect is telling us that.
Totally agree.
I suppose, have you played Mario 64?
The endless staircase.
The stairs, yeah.
That's another
bum, 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 bum. It just keeps going up and up and up and up and up, and it never stops. So it's like an optical illusion, except it's an audio illusion.
Right. Yeah. So I think you might have noticed this. Well, I've noticed this. Christopher Nolan and Hans Zimmer. I think that they used it in Dunkirk and also Interstellar. Where they also add a little ticking noise.
Yeah.
As well, having the Shepard tone, but also adding that little thing on.
Yeah.
To just basically adds to the actual effect. I think it's just.
So it's really unsettling that time is running out. Time's going too fast on the planet. Everyone else on Earth is aging quickly, and he's not. And that ticking clock is like an itch that you have to scratch, and you want it to be over with.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as I told you previously, I was watching Dunkirk, and my fingers were embedded in the chair.
Yep.
And that son of a bitch got me because I forgot everything I knew about sound production. Everything went out the window, and I'm so glad there are still films that can, because I know how the sausage is made now.
Yeah.
And it's not much surprises me, but Christopher Nolan did.
It's different.
God,
it's different.
He's
Always.
so good.
He really is.
He's so good. Yeah. Fantastic.
But thanks for coming on. And,
no problem.
Conclusion. Overall, this technique is a good skill to learn, especially if you want to recreate it yourself for your own film. This technique is needed in the industry. It's a different way of informing the audience about something, and it's very effective. Film producers like Christopher used it, and it's because it works. Thanks for watching.